This is True Buzz, that Mary J. Now we ain't new to this. For my stoners and for my cannabis enthusiasts, never heard a show as good as this. Number one, it's the best. Bringing in many special guests in the industry of cannabis. Business owners to growers, even artists you know of. So sit back and just roll up. Perfect show for my smokers. True Buzz, hey.
Hey everybody, welcome to the True Bud Show podcast. Excited today. We have Jeff Howard, founder of TVHi, a lot of experience in the film industry, which I'm very excited to talk about. Loving film myself, man. So thank you for coming on, Jeff.
Pleasure to meet you.
Hey, likewise. So, I actually just downloaded the app and started scrolling through TVHi to kind of see what it was about right before this. So I didn't get too much time on it, but if you don't mind giving a little breakdown about TVHi, kind of the background of it and where you see it in the future.
For sure. Well, TVHi is actually just a really fun platform we created. We launched it on 4/20 this year. Basically, my background is for the last decade, I've been managing 2 film festivals. And so I watch a lot of films. It's borderline ridiculous, like 1,500 plus per year are submitted. And I have that OCD where I watch them all just in case, because we have a selection jury, but I like weird stuff. So if there's some hidden gem, I want to be able to champion it. So at least I start all the films. And I also enjoy weed. So sometimes when you're, have you ever been watching a film and you're not high and you go, oh, this would be really good if I was stoned.
Totally.
Right. So, and by the way, I've had people say to me, I think that's true for everything, but I'm like, nah, not everything. Like there's some things you watch. I'm like, oh, that would bum me out if I were high. But so one thing led to another. And I just kind of had the idea that what if there was a streaming service devoted to stuff that's great to watch when you're high? Because, I don't know how many states is illegal in now, but I know the list keeps growing. And so I ran it by a couple people, board members of the film festivals and stuff. And there was never a negative reaction to the idea. And one thing led to another and got it together. And so TVHi was born. And right now it's filled with really wonderful indie content, plus some vintage films. I don't know if you noticed, like Nosferatu and Metropolis are on there.
Yeah,
now.
I saw Metropolis. I love that movie.
Yeah, I know. And I've never watched it. I'm looking forward to watching it again, and really seeing the depth of it. But yeah, but the majority of the stuff is stuff made by indie filmmakers who just, have a great vision. And I have a real passion for indie film because, well, I shouldn't make fun of the box office hits that everyone loves, but there's films that are made because a boardroom sat down and said, how do we make the most money possible based on the intellectual property we already own? And then there's indie films where someone's like, my idea is I just love this idea. I've got to see it on screen. And they pour their own heart and soul into it. Most of the time, their own money into it. So, we have the best of the best. We have the best of vintage stuff plus the best of indie stuff.
I love it, man. I love it. And I love how you found the idea or kind of naturally progressed to creating TVHi. And that's what I did with True Buds is I initially came out to California. I love film and acting. So that was my main focus. And then I'm like, I kind of want to create something of my own. What do I love? Film and acting and cannabis. So I kind of created True Buds to just have fun with it and get it out there. Now I was curious, I know you were saying you were at the short film festivals and there's like 1,500 submissions. Now, if on the creator side, if somebody wanted to try to get something on your platform, how do they go about doing that? Or what's that look like?
Actually, you know what? It's so simple. If people go to watchtvhi.com, and it doesn't matter how you spell it, you can spell it TVHi or TVHIGH. At the very top, there's a link that says submit to TVHi, and people can just submit films and we watch them. And if they're right, we have we're socialists. I know we should be capitalists, but we're socialists. So 50% of all gross receipts go to the filmmakers evenly. So when you have a film on there, right now there's about, I think 120 films. So those 120 people, whether your film is watched 100 times or your film is watched once, everyone just shares equally in the gross receipts that we're getting. So, because, you know, I don't want it to be like, oh, well, you didn't have me featured, you know, in enough categories. Like if I'd been in a different genre, I would have been watched more and I would have had a better check. Like I just want everyone who contributes to it to share equally in the rewards. So I guess
Totally.
there's a
So,
lot of idealism behind it.
totally. Sorry, I'm listening. I just I forgot to plug in my computer, so I just got to plug this charger in real quick.
No problem.
Sorry to stray away from the convo there. I got it
And
right
you're giving me a chance to remember to put on Do Not Disturb.
there. Okay. Okay, there we go. We're good.
Excellent.
No, I love that. And you know, I think it's really, really cool what you're doing, how it's like, you know, it's a cool community that's being built that you're like with the TVHi, it seems like, you know, from the independent filmmakers and curating that whole kind of culture behind it. And what popped in my head that I think could be cool one day, you know, out here they do these like cannabis movie nights. They usually play like, you know, some older big movies, but I think it could be cool to do like a cannabis independent movie night here out on one of this like rooftop here in LA and just have a good vibe.
Truth is, I told the story too briefly. The actual TV High story is after the film festivals in the beginning of 2021, because I'm a film festival guy, I thought, you know, let's do this in the theater. So actually in January, we held a movie night at our local theater called THC Cinema. And you can imagine what THC Cinema was. And then and then everyone loved it. Couldn't make any money at it because in the end, like we filled the theater, but you know, you break even because theaters are expensive to rent. But there was a voice like 4 or 5 rows behind me. I heard this. I think her name was I think it was this filmmaker Lindsay Frank. But I hear a voice go at the very end, like we watched 90 minutes of shorts, 65 people in a theater stoned together, and I just hear this voice go, "This has to happen again." So I was like, okay, fine, we'll rent the theater again. And we did it on 4/20 of 2021. And I said, okay, let's do it again on 4/20 of 2022. And the first 2 were called THC Cinema. And that's when I got the idea for the streaming service, because driving home from that second THC Cinema, I said to my designated driver who was driving me, I was like, well, I think you just saw the last THC Cinema because I love it, but it's a little self-indulgent for me to lose a couple $100 just to watch movies with other people stoned. Like I was like, I'm a generous guy. I love this, but maybe I shouldn't be like burning a couple hundred, you know, the theater costs X dollars. So I was only losing a couple hundred. It wasn't like losing thousands to do it. So anyway, and he said, man, it's such a good idea. You shouldn't stop. And that's when I said, well, the truth is people would rather get high and watch films at home than deal with getting out to the theater, right? So
That's what I'm realizing. You know, I love the movie theater. Went and saw like The Flash the other day. I'm not like too into the newer superhero movies and stuff, but I was thinking the other day, like I've been buying more movies for like $20 a pop, you know, when they kind of do the in-home releases. But to your point, I'm like, I can kind of get nice and stoned out. I can maybe cook up a little, have some nice snacks, kind of. So there is that movie theater element, but I feel you so much. It is so nice just to be able to stay in sometimes and, you know, watch some good film.
and you know, to be honest, like we're both in LA, right? So that's LA culture. If we were in a pedestrian city, like if we were, whether it's Europe or New York, like a city with public transit and stuff, maybe the live event would work a little better. Cause you know, I always loved, you know, walking around. But in LA car culture, it's tougher, right? It's like, cause you know, I even thought about it, like maybe we can get Lyft or Uber to sponsor us to like make sure it's everybody. But you know, I would have felt terrible if somebody actually like got a fender bender because they were encouraged to drive stoned for THC Cinema. And by the way, the name change was because the platform that we're using, because there was this platform that constantly reached out to me because I do the film festivals. I produce a TV series on Amazon Prime Video called Discover Indie Film, and there's a Discover Indie Film podcast. So this platform kept coming to me and going, hey, you want to do your Discover Indie Film thing on streaming? And I was like, no, that's too expensive. I'm not going to waste that. But then I talked to them about, but maybe THC Cinema would be a nice niche for a streaming service. And they were like, we love that idea, but get rid of the name THC Cinema because the app stores will pull you because they don't know the difference between an app that's trying to sell weed, which is not legal to do in every state, and an app that's just like, hey, when you happen to be high, watch this. Like, yes, we could have made the argument that we're not a cannabis company. We're just an entertainment company that caters to an audience. But they warned me, like, you won't win that argument. So you got to change the name. And you know what? I actually really love the name TVHi because when you say the website's watchtvhi.com and the social media is Watch TVHi, it's like, well, that pretty much says it all.
Yeah, I thought the name was really nice. Yeah, it flows nicely in there. Now, having so much experience in the film game, short films, watching so many, just out of curiosity, like, what do you think? I know they're so interesting to me. I think short films are like a whole art form in themselves. Like, what's something that maybe pops out at you, like, that will get you drawn into a short film? What's something that you kind of look for? Or I imagine it varies across the board, but is there something that like is done right consistently when like, oh, this is a good one? You can kind of tell.
You can. Well, first, by the way, we have features too. There's features. It's not all shorts, but whether there's a short or a feature, and it doesn't have to be technically perfect, but within the first couple of minutes, you get a vibe if this person who made the film, if there's a vision there. Basically, I just want to see someone's vision. Like if it's generic and uninteresting, you lose me. But whether it's drama or horror or art house or comedy, just I want to see something personal. I want to see something that grabs me. And what grabs me is someone's personal vision. And then, they have to have a certain skill level to make it quality. Actually, just yesterday, I watched the funniest dang movie that was made by a young man who lives on a reservation. And he made a hilarious film about someone who the face of Jesus showed up in like a fried strawberry shortcake the guy made. And so he was like charging people $50 to watch it. And it was hilarious. And it was definitely very, very raw, but it was funny and smart. And it didn't matter to me that they shot it with iPhones. Like, cool. I love this film. I'm going to champion it, But then also we've had amazing films. Oh man, a film that I hope, I'll cross my fingers, but we had a film in our film festival last month called Solus, Solus. And this director from England who lives in the UK, he downloaded, so NASA has thousands of hours of 4K footage that they shot on the International Space Station, and they've made it public domain. They're like, use it for anything you want. So this guy told a whole story in like, I think a 7-8 minute short film that takes place in space with actual footage shot in space. Everyone on our awards jury was sending me emails going, how did that guy do the zero gravity stuff? How did that guy shoot that film? How huge was this budget? And I'm like, the budget was zero because he used free footage and he watched thousands of hours and he used the clips he wants. The astronaut you see in that film floating through the space station is a real astronaut who doesn't even know he's in a short film on the festival circuit. It's funny.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so those are two opposites, right? One thing is shot in actual space. One thing is shot on a Native American reservation, but like they're just original and someone's sharing like a personal vision. And I don't think you can top that.
Man, I'm excited to check that out. Yeah, and I wonder how he even like knew that was released in the first place. He was obviously doing a lot of research probably and stuff, but that's super cool story right there.
I agree with you. That's another one of those things where like, here I am an American and I'm doing a Q&A with this British guy and he's telling me that the space agency funded by my tax dollars. I didn't know they offered this. How does some guy in England know? It's so funny. Like, I wonder just how many amazing government services, like, filmmakers might be missing out on that. Who knows? Maybe there's footage of building the Hoover Dam that's be public domain at this point.
Yeah, that's what it's really interesting. You know, I've had a couple of those royalty free membership site things, and I don't have them right now, but there's so much cool footage to your point. You can, some's pretty expensive, but considering, and that's what I think of too when I see all these drones and stuff, you know, and drone shots in particular. I'm like, it's so crazy how quick that progressed from, you know, that was never doable that not too long ago, you know.
You just brought up something that I use in Q&As all the time, which is if I told you how many films I see, shorts or features, that start with a gorgeous drone shot, like, and it's just like, wow, this film, you know, because now everyone can use a drone, like they're so inexpensive. And, you know, it used to have to be a helicopter or a crane. So it looks like this super amazing, expensive shot. And then they cut to their characters and it looks like crap. And I'm like, dude, you can't start with a beautiful drone shot and then go to horrible cinematography. Leave out the gorgeous drone shot if you're going to have horrible. Just start. I can live with horrible cinematography if it's a great idea, but I can't go from like one of those amazing. So actually, there was a film this last festival that was started with a drone shot and then went to good cinematography. I'm like, you know what? You're like one of the few films I've seen that went from drone to quality instead of drone to crap. Because it's just, I don't know. That's right now. It's
That's
just
an interesting point. Yeah, I could see though too. Like, yeah, it's like, oh, you're in for a treat, and then all of a sudden you're like, all right, no, if it wasn't up to par there. Now,
By
this
the way,
pop,
if you're game, I keep telling everyone who uses these drones, I'm like, someday someone's going to make 100% drone film. I've seen a music video that was 100% drone. In fact, it's on TVHi.
okay,
Emergence.
emergence,
It's
okay,
an art piece where there's this warehouse with a piano, and this guy's it's a technically a music video, but it's an art film. This guy's playing this amazing piano piece, and these two dancers appear from behind the piano. And as they dance through this empty warehouse, a drone dances with them and like circles them and goes around and under the, I think it even goes under the piano at one point. Like, and so like it's a ballet in a way where the camera is one of the dancers, right? And you could have never done that without, it's just like amazing that what these some drone pilots can do. It's amazing. So
super cool. Yeah, I heard somebody was telling me about like a 4th of July event. I think it was my sister in Colorado. They had like thousands of drones fly up for this concert deal, and it's you know, with talking this technology and stuff and these strikes going on, I'm just kind of curious. It popped in my head. What's your thought on like AI in general with film and stuff and creativity? I know it's kind of a loaded question.
I know it is. Well, honestly, it's a tool, and I can see. Well, obviously, I'm 100% behind both unions uh, because because their remuneration and their pay is just not things are out of whack. It's honestly, I think it's funny because it's the entertainment community really taking on what is happening to the entire country, right? Which is top level CEOs are making unbelievable amounts of money per hour. Like they're getting whatever 20, 50, $100 million a year and avoiding taxes on it. And then but they make more in an hour than the people actually doing the labor make in a day. And it's like, or a year, and it doesn't add up. So I'm glad they're doing it. I don't think AI, we get films submitted now with AI in them. And normally it's just, an enhanced shot or something or an image. But I don't know. I don't think it'll ever be screenwriting. I could see, I mean, I don't know. I just hope that they work it out. Oh no, actually, okay, I'll say something, and it might be mildly ignorant, but I think something I saw on social media that I agree with the most is that not necessarily AI, but the what is it? The whether it's the images or the database of images that are going into the image creators or the film creators and the database of written words that go into it. It's not creating something new, it's synthesizing something from thousands or a million human created ideas. And if you steal from one writer, it's plagiarism. And you know what? If you steal from 100 writers, it's still plagiarism, and 1,000. So actually, someone said it's not. Can you remind me what's the name of the thing? The Chat GPT. They call it Word. I'm blanking.
See, I'm not sure. I've heard the Chat GPT.
Yeah, they call large language model or whatever. They're like, it's not a large language model or whatever.
I'll learn.
I'm
Yeah,
totally
yeah.
blown. Yeah, it's a copyright violation algorithm. It's an algorithm that manages to borrow from so many sources that none of those sources can truly claim to have been ripped off. But you're still using all those sources, and it's definitely not right. I would be very happy if they shut it down and said you have to, any sources that you're using for this AI, the source material for the AI to use has to all be, everyone on there has to be paid, right?
Yeah, that's it. I really like that perspective because it makes sense. And if that was the case too, everybody would still be winning. Whoever, like it would just be less money for the people with the AI or whatever. But it's yeah, it's an interesting world. It just comes up in my conversations when I'm talking to people because I know there's different sides of it for sure. But I kind of feel what you're saying there for sure. I use it for a little bit for some like editing for like my shorts that I do. But my kind of thought on it is like, without taking away from anybody, I just want to like kind of learn about it so it doesn't, so I can try to utilize it if it's going to become a thing, I guess is kind of how I feel.
That's actually someone I really respect said, you're not going to lose your job to AI. You're going to lose your job to someone who's learned how to use AI to create things, which is probably the case, right? Like it won't be, but of course, one person who's mastered how to get the right images out of AI might put, 1,000 artists out of business instead of one artist. So it is scary to think that like, one person sitting at a laptop can like manage to get AI to write, the next 20 Marvel scripts. They won't be good movies,
Yeah.
but they'll be better than some of the ones that that a committee wrote anyway. But
Well, it's like a good friend of mine, he does like copywriting and he's like, oh, he's like, they laid off some people at my job. I'm like, oh, I'm sorry to hear, like, you still have yours? He's like, yeah. He's like, I used to be able to do 2 articles a day or whatever. He's like, now that we use AI, they do like 16. I'm like, oh, right on. He's like, no, he's like, I'm going to be the next one gone though, basically. But it's just kind of crazy how, like you're saying, how it's working like that. But, you know, apart from the AI talk, well, I'm curious to see how AI plays into the cannabis industry as a whole too. It'll be interesting to see how that plays out. But kind of back to the world of lovely cannabis, my friend. What's your favorite thing? Do you like flower, edibles? Do you like it all?
I am an edibles only person at this point. I grew up in the 70s. I'm pretty old. And in LA in the 70s,
Looking
our
good,
air
man.
was so bad that my lungs are just awful. So whenever I try to smoke, I'll like cough for 5-10 minutes. It's terrible. Like I have bad lungs. So the amazing thing for me has been, and by the way, like it was worth it in college. Like, fine, I'll just cough my head off. But once you're older, you don't want to do it. But the way the edibles industry has really mastered it, like, just 5 years ago, I remember like you'd get a candy bar or cookie, and it was like rolling the dice of how strong it was going to be. And it always tasted like crap. And now they taste good. I happen to love a couple certain, there's a couple brands I'm loyal to. And the dosage is so freaking consistent now, right?
It wasn't as consistent. And like that's what I think about too. I'm like, this growth and that's happened in 5-10 years. Like imagine what we're gonna see 5 years from now. These, I'm like, but then I think like how much farther can it really go? But I feel like it's so crazy we're discovering all these cannabinoids. There just needs to be so much more research done on terpenes. And I just love hearing when that's coming around.
Yeah, they keep coming out with new little 3-letter compounds that are in the plant that they isolate, and they're like, this one, I just heard one of my college roommate just told me, I'm forgetting which one it was, but he's like, look up this one. I'm like, ooh, that sounds interesting, because I think it's I'm forgetting what it does. But actually my wife and I are big fans of CBN,
Nice.
because CBN is like very sleepy. So like when you do an edible that's like 2 parts THC, 1 part CBN, man, like in your, I don't shouldn't give away my age, but whatever. In your 50s, you don't sleep as well as when you're young. Like I'll get maybe 5, 6 hours of sleep. If I take one of these edibles with CBN at bedtime, I get like 7, 8 hours of sleep, and I wake up feeling so good.
I love hearing that because that's what I've heard. Like I don't wake up too much. My more issue is kind of falling asleep sometimes, but I've heard in my research I've done on CBN, that's like one of the best components is it helps you stay asleep, where like the THC and CBD in conjunction will help you kind of fall asleep. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I used to sell the CBN or the CBN kind of sleep shot. It was 5 milligrams THC, 10 CBN, and 15 CBD. But it's hard sometimes to find products on the market that have like a higher threshold of CBN because
I've never seen that. The one you just mentioned, I've never seen. I've always seen like CBN is like maybe half of the THC.
yeah, it was interesting. We had really good feedback on it, and I've seen more, kind of products coming out like that. And I like that one too because it was like zero sugar. Like I love cannabis gummies and baked goods, but my thing a lot of times is I don't want to consume a lot of sugar, especially before bed. So I'm always kind of looking for other options as well out there.
That's a really good point. Although I gotta admit, like, I love that they don't taste bad anymore.
Yeah,
Like,
that's the thing. They taste so good. I can keep eating them.
like the last couple years, right? Even like 2, 3 years ago, I remember like bad taste. And then the same brands now, like there's like no bad taste. I don't really, but actually I was talking to a guy who owns like 5 cannabis stores in LA. And he said that it's that all the shitty companies are gone now. Like they all went out of business. So now like everyone left, like now the survivors, like, right, process of elimination, evolution worked, natural selection worked, and now all the edible companies that are left are making good money and can invest in their product and make it better. And I'm like, well, it's a wonderful time to be alive.
Yeah, I see. I think the two biggest players in the California market for like gummies are like Wild and Kiva. I feel like just kill the game, and they're great. I love the Lost Farm Kivas, and I like the Wilds as well.
I actually do. I'm quite loyal to Wild.
Yeah, yeah, they're
Yeah.
they're
And
good,
in
man.
fact, funny story, at the first THC cinema we held, one of the filmmakers works at Wild. So he showed up at THC cinema movie night and he handed me 2 like really nice Wild hoodies. So I got a Wild hoodie for when it's cold enough to wear a hoodie.
Nice, nice. Yeah, they do it right. I learned, or one of their, it was like a rep or somebody that used to be a consultant for him was telling me that what they have like a different style. They do like a coconut oil infusion with theirs that helps with the flavor as well as like that, the fats in there. But he's like, that's why it tastes so good, because some of these other brands will throw, just kind of do a distillate in there or something. So I have to do more research. But yeah, when I would be in dispensaries kind of doing pop-ups, people just, it has such a brand like buy-in and loyalty because it's always good and consistent. And I like
Oh,
seeing like people like them who do CBD products, like just pushing it out to the masses and like growing cannabis and, kind of breaking that stigma, I think is cool too.
for sure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The gummy world. But yeah, do you ever do like any of these tablets or like RSO or anything like that?
I have not. I'm not against it. I just haven't it's funny. I haven't tried it because sometimes those are really high dosage, I think, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll have to get you some. I work for this company, Autumn Brands, and we have a little elixir now that's like the whole bottle's 300 THC, 150 CBD. So you can get pretty granular with the dosage. So I'll have to, I'll have to link up and get you one of those sometime.
Yeah, I've got a funny one of my funny stories. Actually, I have a funny chemotherapy story, which there shouldn't be, right? But actually back in 20 I had cancer back in 2015 and then it returned in 2016. So I had a really hard ass chemo process. I'm all good now. And of course, in 2016, edibles and things were not what they are today. So I did get like one of those dropper things. And I was like, mid chemo, I was going to go to my favorite Mexican restaurant in LA with like a bunch of old friends. And I knew I wouldn't be able to eat unless I was like fairly high. So I like squoze the thing and like some stuff came out. And I was like, well, that looks like too much, whatever. I just took it all. I became a zombie at the restaurant. Like I just went, "Ugh," and I didn't even get to enjoy the food. I was so bummed. I was like, oh man, that was like it was funny though.
Yeah.
Thankfully, my lady protected me. She was my guardian angel that night. She's like, I think we have to go.
It's great to have an angel there, and it sounded like some RSO, like a little thicker substance. Yeah, that stuff will like.
It was thick.
Yeah, that will. I'll usually take that and put it in like a little gel cap or something. But like the first, they say like you can literally have like a less than a grain of rice, and it will get you.
Exactly. When you squeeze and like 2 grains of rice come out, you're like,
Well, what am I gonna do? Yeah,
what am I gonna do here? I want to enjoy some El Coyote. So
You know, I've never been there, man. I know it's such a legendary spot. I'm like, I need
gotta
to check
go.
it for real,
Gotta
huh?
go.
It's so.
And
I
if you
feel
like
I've seen it in countless
margaritas,
movies.
I mean, when I was young, yeah, I know the great thing is, El Coyote's right across from Quentin Tarantino's New Beverly Theater,
Oh, okay.
where that's where the rule is they only show films on film. Like it's an old-fashioned film projector.
Okay.
And
See,
they
I didn't
show
even know that.
classic
That's really
cinema
cool.
there.
Shit, yeah, nice.
Yeah, so you can Uber to El Coyote, have a delicious meal, hopefully nicely stoned, maybe have a delicious margarita. When I was a kid, when I was in my 20s, like a margarita was like $2.50. Now I think they're like $7. They're still cheap, but man, you could get drunk for nothing back when I was a kid. But anyway, and then you walk across the street and see a great movie. It's actually a really fun thing.
That's cool. Yeah, I'm gonna do that as like a little date night. That sounds cool.
I highly recommend it. I got to get back there somehow.
Yeah, I'm gonna check it out. That's a cool thing too. I've been in LA for about like coming on 8 years now, so not that long, but that's a cool thing about just the cinema world and films. Like when you start watching something, so many have these shots around LA, and I've just started over the past like 3 years or so. It's like recognizing so many more spots, and it kind of makes you feel like part of the movie. Like, oh, that's cool.
When you moved here, did you notice how many streets are the last names of famous like sitcom characters like Al Bundy and Chandler Bing? Like I've had many friends who moved to LA and they're like everywhere, like, so all the TV writers, just when they're commuting to work, they're driving on Chandler Boulevard, they're like, oh, I should name a character Chandler. They're driving on Bundy. What name should we use for this family? I don't know. How about Bundy? Like it's like the street names of LA pop up on TV shows all the time, I think.
I love that. It's funny. I never really even thought about it. So you got me thinking now. Now I'll be finding it.
Yeah, look, I swear to God, you see, once you've been aware of it, like you notice it all the time.
Yeah, that's such a funny thing. I was listening to this guy's book. I think it's called like a reticular activating system and reticular activating system. Pardon me, I think it's called, but it's basically this part in your brain that kind of like when you see something, like if I wanted to get like a new car, like a Porsche or something, all of a sudden I start seeing more Porsches on the road, or now I'm going to start looking for names in movies. And I didn't realize it was like, I always thought it was a thing, but I didn't realize it's actually like a scientific, like, thing in our brains that works like that. I'm not doing justice at all describing it, but
No, but yeah, we all experience that. Isn't that crazy? Like, yeah, you get a Hyundai and you're like, oh, there's Hyundais everywhere. I never noticed them before. Yeah, I know. It's very funny.
You know what book I started listening to like last week that's super good? It's called Outwitting the Devil. Highly recommend it. By Napoleon Hill. It was released like so long after his death, but it's really interesting, the stuff they're talking about and the dialogue between him and this devil, and why that kind of popped in my head is like part of what he says during it when he's talking to the devil is like, the devil's like, all of these people have to do is kind of switch, if you're having kind of fearful thoughts, you just switch your thinking, and it kind of like we're talking about, it'll all kind of come full circle. But I haven't read his book that was like his pop off, like the Think and Grow Rich back. I know that's a super popular book that he did, so I'm gonna have to check that one out next. But this book was a recommendation from a friend, and I've really been enjoying it, so I recommend checking it out for sure.
I just added it to my little list of books to read.
Nice, man. Random question for you here. Do you have like a morning routine? Do you enjoy cannabis in the morning? Do you take caffeine? Got a little.
I do start my day with my coffee press. I start with coffee. I love coffee in the morning. I do find that if I don't have the coffee, by the way, I avoid caffeine after morning. Like I used to be like an iced tea guy. Oh man, I used to drink, but now I only do caffeine in the morning. So no, I don't touch cannabis till bedtime, basically. Like it's for me, it's like the last hour or two of, TV we watch at night, and then it's always nice when it kicks in, and then we fall asleep. So I for me, it's a nighttime thing, and I love my coffee in the morning.
That's nice. Yeah, a little reward in the evening. Yeah, I asked too because I'm curious. I got this shout out to Magic Mind. They have these little like matcha shots. It's got like it's kind of blurred out, but it's got like ashwagandha, lion's mane, all this stuff. So I'm like a hardcore caffeine guy. I've been trying to get better. So I drink like energy drinks. My cutoff time is like 4 o'clock p.m. I'm trying to get better. But that being said, I'm trying to like drink these more. You get a little matcha. You can dump it in your coffee too and stuff. Um, but I'm trying to figure out ways to cut back my caffeine with still getting that like, that stimulative, sense a little bit. And I found that I've had like 5 or 6 of them, but I found so far they kind of help with the focus and stuff. So yeah, I just wanted to give a little shout out to Magic Mind. Anybody watching or listening, you can go to magicmind.com and use code TrueBuds20, get 20% off. And then, or just go to magicmind.com/TrueBuds and you can get the discount too. But just want to give them a little shout out, man. So made a little segue into kind of the morning routine, and tastes good too, man. And it reminds me, I used to sell these little cannabis shots, like the CBN one I was talking about. So it kind of reminds me of that world. I'm a big fan of these little cannabis kind of additives, or like the tinctures I was talking about, because I just love the versatility element of them. Like the gummies and chocolates and stuff are really cool, but being able to be like kind of the world's your oyster sometimes with some of these other products and you can make, and I love doing like homemade infusions and stuff like that too.
Actually, I love that idea, and I love the idea that like we have friends come over and like mix cocktails for us and stuff. I love to host. I would say, pardon, I won't use the word party. I'll use the word small gatherings. Like I love, 8 to 12 people in the backyard just chilling and having a nice time. Too many people, and then I feel like I got to work the whole room, and then I don't have any quality time with anyone. I always want quality time. So, and like, I love the idea of like adding a little, like, someone gives me their fancy cocktail, and I'm like, okay, cool. I wish there was some THC in it though.
See, man, and that's why I am such a huge fan of the beverages. And I was doing, and yeah, dude, if ever you're doing a little pop up, you want me to roll through, I'll make some tasty cannabis cocktails for you. Because that's what I was doing at some of the like the Artistry Lounge in WeHo, the Woods. I would kind of pop up and make mocktails for people, and then they would dose it themselves. Is kind of the legal way to do it. But it's and there's so much education kind of involved with that, because a lot of people don't know these types of products exist in like the beverage world. But like you're saying, like a small gathering, is like my style too. But like with parties in general in cannabis, when I'm making, like, it's just so cool to be in that environment. It's such a different world from the alcohol, bar life, which is still great, and there's still people that enjoy. I have friends that love mixing their cannabis drinks with their alcohol drinks and stuff. But just being at these cannabis events and sitting around and seeing everybody chilling, smiling, nobody's falling over, nobody's trying to fight anybody. It just makes me happy.
I look 30, oh man, like 35 years ago, I remember coming home from college and my mom, like, for some reason, she felt like going, so have you tried marijuana? And I was like, yeah. And she goes, what's it like? And I go, let me put it this way. If you walk into a room full of drunks and you're sober, you turn around and you walk out of that room. If you walk into a room, because like it's just a bad vibe, right? And if you walk into a room with a bunch of stoned people, they're just listening to music and you can just sit down and chill with them. Like, I was like, trust me, if you were exposed to these two substances equally, mom, you would want marijuana legal and alcohol either. Like, I mean, heck, when you're in college and if you see a car with a window bashed in, it was a drunk. It when a stoned person ever walks by a car and goes, oh man, I want to hit this.
It's so true. And it's like, and yeah, and that's where like there's a time and a place for the booze for me. I've just been really like trying to cut it out because I just looked at it like a while back and I was like, it's not really doing much for me, where I think cannabis does a lot for me. Like I like it like just to get stoned and stuff, but I do like it a lot too for certain pain relief, like inflammation, stuff like that. So while I might love it recreationally, like there's a lot of medicinal properties. And that's why I always like to, kind of put stuff out there and just talk about it and try to make content about it. And my thing too is just as in anything, film or whatever, with cannabis especially, I'm always learning, man. Like we're saying, there's so much to be learned still. It's crazy.
And you'll love this. I was at a tequila tasting. A friend invited me to this fancy ass tequila tasting. Like tequila is like somewhere like a $60 bottle. One was a $250 bottle. So it was delicious tequila. So it's me, the goof off with the running TVHi, and it was 3 doctors, and one of them was a spinal surgeon. And so when I told them about TVHi, the spinal surgeon said, I'm going to tell you something. As a surgeon, I said, patients ask me like, what do I have to do before surgery? And he said, for 1 week, you've got to have no alcohol and no cigarettes, because when I am, as soon as I see your spine, I can tell if you've been drinking. I can tell if you've had tobacco. And he said, and people have asked, what about marijuana? He goes, you could take an edible the day of. I don't care. It's non-toxic. It doesn't harm your body. So a spinal surgeon was telling me, like, his objective opinion is marijuana is fine. Stay away from the other stuff because it's toxic to your body, and he sees an effect on our spine from it.
That is crazy.
Yeah. By the way, I was said to myself, I was like, I wish I'd recorded you, but if I had, you'd probably ask me to delete it, because even if you'll say that over a tequila, I don't think you actually want that in public, what you've said, because, doctors got to watch themselves. But
totally. Yeah. It's, I'm with this Autumn Brands that I'm with now. We have a cannabis salve that I've been going into, talking to chiropractors, massage therapists and whatnot. And it's great, but it has some THC in there. So they'll kind of do like an affiliate thing, order it from our site. But the crazy thing about the salve is it doesn't get you high, So it makes me so happy for the day when that can be in the store. But what popped in my head too, that blew my mind years ago, was when I learned we all had an endocannabinoid system. Like that's part of our bodies, and like, I'm like, how did I never learn about that in school, or like never heard about that? I have this whole system in my body that's like receptive of cannabinoids. Like that was like a mind blowing moment for me.
you just blew my mind. I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I try to like read stuff and then try to simplify it for myself and everybody, but yeah, it's super interesting. And that's where it's different. Everybody's biology and endocannabinoid system is different. And I don't know if you've talked to them. I talk to people all the time in dispensaries who are like, they can eat edibles and not feel a thing. They can do like 1,000. Some people's bodies are just different, and their system, the endocannabinoid system is different, and there's CB1 and CB2 receptors in their brain. All this stuff's crazy with cannabis, but now I'm getting too scientific with it, man.
You're getting scientific, but I love science. I'm all about it. I find it fascinating, and yeah, actually, it's funny because it's not what you're talking about, because I was just about to bring up resistance. Like, I know there's some people who need really quite a lot to feel it from an edible, and I've almost intentionally maintained like a low level, so that, because I know if I start creeping up, like I'll have to keep creeping up. So I actually still feel it, even if I'm only taking like a 10 milligram edible. I have a nice ride. Uh-oh.
Froze a little bit, but yeah, I think okay, cool. I think we're unfrozen. Yeah,
Yeah, I can hear you.
That's the perfect dose, man. Though, like once you start, like I have to take more now, and it's just like you're saying, it becomes an evil cycle. And I think the way you do it, kind of as a nighttime routine, is nice, But I'm
Yeah,
usually,
I'll do an extra half with the wife if it's been a particularly stressful day. I'll be like, hey, you want to do 1.5 tonight? But I don't want to do that too consistently yet, because then I will be like, oh man, now I need a lot more.
yeah, it's definitely an evil cycle. But
Yeah, I got friends who I'm like, are you kidding? I don't feel it till I hit like 50 or 100. I'm like, ooh, I don't want to be that guy. So I'm like conscious of it.
and that's where too, like that's where with a lot of content in my infusion stuff I do is like, I love the dispensary bought products, but a big thing for me is I want everybody who needs it or wants it to have access to making it like cheaper. So that's what I try when I do like coconut infusions, butter and stuff. That's kind of my thinking there too. Like it's hard to beat these store-bought things, but especially if you're taking it medicinally, like it adds up quick. Like some of these people who are taking hundreds of milligrams a day. So I'm always trying to see both sides. Why I love buying the nice stuff. I also like making nice infusions, but bringing the weed to the masses, I guess, is kind of just like an underlying goal.
Like I said, I'm with you. The masses need it. I mean, the world would be a better place.
Yeah. Well,
if just no one gets mad. It just, I don't know. It is it's not magical, but it enhances lives in a real way, I think.
Totally. And that's where like I'll talk to people too, are like, oh, it's not, I don't like it. I'm like, cool. It's not, I'm not like pushing it. I never push it, but I'm always like, yo, it's not for everybody too. Some people do have like adverse reactions, and there's very few rare instances of something called like CHS, with is like cannabis hypermesis syndrome, where people will get some physically ill, some stuff going on, but it's like that stuff's super rare. Like you're saying, like I think in 99% of the population, it's a great thing.
Oh yeah, no, and I all the time, like when I would mention TVHi on on the Discover Indie Film podcast, I'd always say, for those who can use drugs responsibly, because I have friends in recovery.
That's a good line. I like that. Yeah.
And if you can use it responsibly and it doesn't have a negative effect on your life, then this is great for you. I know it's not great for everyone, and some people have a brain chemistry that sends them off the deep end. Even if, yeah, all we've said about marijuana, it's lack of toxicity and stuff. I know there's people who like has a really negative effect on their life if they, wake and bake, and it obviously you can overdo anything.
Totally. Yeah. That's where like I usually don't do the wake and bake. What I'll do in the afternoon sometimes if I'm working out is take a couple hits before a workout or something. But pardon me, I'm pretty much like you. In the evening is my go-to time to indulge. And I was thinking too, on your guys on the TVHi platform, I know it's film focused, feature film, short film. Is there any like cannabis, like what's your thoughts on like having cannabis educational content submitted on there, or would it need to be more of a documentary style about like Jack Herrera or something like that?
I mean, I'd be open to it. We do have some documentaries, and I think there is going to be a documentary at some point that we had at the festivals about a farm in upstate New York that this guy inherited his parents' farm, and the crop he went for it and went through all the legal hoops to jump through to turn into a cannabis farm. And so it's a really cool documentary. We actually have some TV series on there that people produced technically to be like a web series, but they came over to us. Some are comedy, some are well, most are comedy. One is a really fun one that a buddy of mine in Atlanta produces, where he just sits down a stoned person and then asks them a political question, and it's like what their ramblings about, like trying to answer, like, how do you feel about the death penalty? And then like you get like the stoned mind going, oh man, the death penalty. Well, let me start with this. And it's actually really pretty entertaining, but that's not educational. I'd be totally up for the educational stuff. That sounds like a good fit.
Well, that sounds cool too. The one you just mentioned reminds me of my buddy. It's like a show podcast called Highly Unlikely, but he has these pretty like famous comedians on, and then they bring up highly unlikely stats or facts, and then they talk about it. But you got me thinking too with the documentary idea with this company I work for, Autumn Brands. It's super interesting. Not like a sales pitch or anything, but they are. When I started working for them, it blew my mind, the chemicals and cannabis thing. So there's no spray ever on the crop. They don't even put like neem oil. The tagline is like, you can wash your lettuce, not your weed. But it used to be like a cut flower farm. So I might even talk to them about putting a cool doc together and trying to get that submitted. But I have a bunch of friends who make content that I'm like, yo, you should submit it on TVHi, because I like what you're doing, man.
They should. Actually, we've had some companies, we've been talking to some people because it's legalized at the state level, not the federal level. I know it's actually very difficult for cannabis companies to find places to advertise. And so they've come to us, they've come to TVHi and said, can we, well, we're actually not ad supported, but be happy to like put content about you on there. Like it would be, I think it's a good fit.
Totally.
Because, I believe me, I obviously they have to focus on their product, but I would love to, if only someone had the foresight to like show how, like you and I both mentioned that we like Wild, like what happened in the last 10 years, like at Wild would have made an amazing documentary. Because I'm sure like from the packaging to the product, to the professionalism, to the distribution, like, oh man, that's a story.
Totally. And I feel like you're saying, there's so many, like I've heard so many crazy stories or just things too in cannabis, and right now is a crazy time. So Yeah, it's interesting, and you hit the nail on the head, and that's part of the why it's hard that you can't really advertise in cannabis. A big reason that I love it so much is like, or I'm optimistic at least too, is that it's forced in a way creativity that wouldn't, if the cannabis industry could just run typical ads on Google and Facebook and that, it would be in a different place. I like how it's forced to creativity, and that's why I love the content too. And I see such a value in all sorts of content, but especially cannabis content, because it's grown by a crazy number. I had this guy on the podcast who has a company called Flower Hire, and he'll post these stats on his social sometimes. Like, he's like, just a reminder, in the next 10 years, there's going to be this many hundreds, like 150,000 cannabis jobs coming. So it's just like so eye-opening when he puts those numbers up, because like, oh, the industry's hard right now. It's hitting this, California is kind of tough right now. But then I see these numbers like, oh, it's just going to continue to keep blowing up.
And should we even talk about the tax revenues? I mean, come on.
Dude, it's insane.
20 years ago, all that commerce was untaxed and unregulated, and people were getting shot over it. I'm not an expert. I know there's still some criminal elements, but Lord knows the people that own these edible companies or the companies shipping flower to dispensaries, they obviously need security, but they don't have to kill people to move their product. I mean, it's just so, and our schools are getting funded by the fact that we can finally tax this commerce that used to be, underground. It's great. But obviously, if you can't tell, I'd be for legalizing and regulating everything,
Totally. Well, that's the thing with the cannabis tax too. I saw like, if you graph the other day, like if you buy a liquor, whatever, the excise tax was like 2 pennies. You buy a cigarette, the excise tax was like a cent. You buy a joint and the excise tax is like $1.30. So that's kind of the part of the issue too, is like the 30. And I was thinking about it the other day, I'm like, so I'm getting taxed like 35% basically out of my paycheck or whatever. And then you go to a dispensary and then you're getting taxed an additional 35%. So by the time you're out the door, technically you're 75%, you're 70% in the hole, which is crazy. But like, the whole tax thing's interesting. But I think that's like where they need to lower it for sure and that will negate, or that will kill a lot of this black market that's been going on.
Yeah. And it has to, obviously, look, it's young, right? And the world's changing, but obviously there's no justification for alcohol to have a lower tax than marijuana. I mean, it's just the alcohol lobby is so powerful that they can fight it. But, at some point these things will level off. Hopefully it won't take too long. Yeah. But oh man, they should tax the shit out of alcohol just to help pay for all the damage it causes.
For real. It's funny. I make comparisons a lot about weed and alcohol, but I haven't really, I know I just mentioned the taxing, but it's crazy. Like, imagine, like you're saying, imagine if a bottle of vodka had 35% tax on it. People still buy the shit out of it, but it's like, damn, like you're saying, it does cause that extra damage. That whole culture, the whole, liquor culture is interesting too. I bartended for a long time too. That's kind of what brought me into the cannabis beverage world. But now I'm getting on the rant. I was like, we'll keep it pretty short today, dude. I feel like we could talk all day, Jeff. I'm really enjoying chatting with you, bro.
I love to talk. I'm enjoying it too.
Well, man,
I just like, I like my small gatherings. What can I say? I like talking.
Hey, I'm right with you, man. Well, yeah,
and this is a great subject.
Hey, thanks, man. Yeah, I love what you're doing, man. I feel like it aligns like so nicely with everything I love, with the film, the cannabis, building that, building the culture you are with TVHi, and really focus on the independent filmmaker and the creatives who might otherwise not have an outlet to get some of these really cool films seen out there. I know you said there's like other, feature films like Metropolis and stuff on there too that are like OGs in the game. And I need to watch that again too, man. I watch it in Filmcast, actually. This is the last time I watched it, back in the day, like 10 years ago now. And I'm like, that movie was,
if you like indie stuff, man, too, though, we got some indie features on there you got to include, like there's one called Midnight Science.
Writing it down now.
These two brothers made it, but this guy basically made the entire film by hand himself, including all the VFX, everything. And it took him like 5-6 years. He just made the whole thing himself, and it is a crazy trippy film. Actually, another one that I just love and I watch and I'm like, oh, that'd be so good high. And I haven't even have time. You know, it's funny. I don't have time to like rewatch everything stoned. I just, you know, what can I say?
Yeah.
I need someone to create an edible that also like gives you a 48-hour day.
Like limitless
Yeah,
THC.
I need to be able, yeah, I need so much more time to do all the things I want to do.
It's yeah, it's there's never enough. There's never seems to be enough. I'm like, oh damn. And time's always flying by too, man. I'm like, oh dang, it's already. But you know, it's that's why it's cool, right? That like what you're doing and you know what I'm doing is like I feel like we're both really passionate about everything. And at the end of the day, even if you know times are crazy with the economy right now, but I know that I'm still enjoying making videos and educating about cannabis and trying to have fun out here.
Hey, you're doing the work. I love it.
Hey, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah, we'll have to pop on another one or do some collaborations or something, man. And I'm gonna submit a couple films that I've done in the past too. Um,
Cool, cool.
and you
Hey,
know, s-
the jury will love watching them.
yeah,
And
yeah,
hey, you know, on my whatever, I should have you on my podcast because the Discover Indie Film thing, I do a thing where people name we call it the 4 questions, which is you name 3 favorite films, an underrated film, an overrated film, and a lesser known film that people should seek out. And you know, and hey, you know what? If you start watching TV High, I have thrown this idea at people, and so far no one's taken me up on it. And I've actually got to do it myself. But we can create a playlist. So if somebody watched a bunch of stuff on there and gave me a list of like their 10, 15 favorite films that they've seen, like we could have just like at the video store where there was like the staff picks, like we could have, you know, your picks could be like, here's, you know, like I was going to name my list, Jeff Loves It Weird.
that's cool. I
And like
like.
show like the 10, 15, have the 10, 15 like most bizarre, strangest shorts possible, like lined up together for people to just like enjoy my little weird playlist.
Hey, I like it. You would have me checking it out.
You
Yeah,
know?
yeah. But like I said, I just literally downloaded the app like 20 minutes for hopping on here, so I'm excited to kind of browse through it and you know get watching it.
For
I
sure.
I usually like to watch a nice movie on Sunday night, so we'll see what I
Yeah.
pick.
Hey, and I might as well add if because we did this promotion and it's still good, but if people use the word the promo code stream 420, I think you might have to be on the website watchtvhi.com. I don't know if this code works on the app stores, but you can always join on the website and then download the app and use your login info there. So if you use stream 420, you get the instead of a 1 week free trial, you get a 4 week free trial.
Oh,
You get a
okay.
month.
Nice. That's solid. Yeah, I'll definitely put that down below so everybody can check that out for sure.
Why not? You know,
Hey,
it was a fun little card we were giving out on 420 in WeHo.
nice,
QR
nice.
code. What are you gonna do? Oh, that's so funny. I forgot that you were using the video on YouTube or whatever. It's like,
Yeah, yeah, I'll throw it up
I
and
thought I
then
was just showing you. I wasn't meaning to show everybody.
no, I love it, man. Yeah, stream 420. I'll put that below. Get that because yeah, I got the week and that extra 3 weeks sounds cool. You know, I wouldn't hate on that.
You
And I want
know,
to say, dude, I love your shirt. By the way, I'm trying to figure. Is it like a space? Or it's like a Yeti with a?
it is actually a sloth with a jetpack.
That's freaking sick, bro.
So I love going to these like street fairs and artists things, and this is made by an artist. He lives in he's LA based, and he's always at this place that my wife likes to go to called Unique LA. And hold on, his company is Story Spark. So if you want to check out, I got like 8 of this guy's shirts now. Like there's a Godzilla wearing a VR mask. So I picture like the Japanese government put a VR mask. So now Godzilla thinks he's smashing Tokyo on VR, but he's actually like out in a field not hurting anything. And there's like King Kong being carried by drones. Like he just mixes old and new. So
I love it.
if people go to Story Spark on Instagram, you can see all this guy's artwork. I just think he's a great artist. Every time I see him at a street show, I'm like, okay, what's your new stuff? I'm gonna buy a couple more shirts from you.
I love it, man. Because yeah, I would see like I kept seeing. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah,
That's
that's
cool.
right. I
Story
guess
Spark,
the
bro.
camera's a little.
Oh, that's fresh. Word, man. Well, yeah, man. I appreciate you coming on again, Jeff. Yeah, we'll get another one. We'll do a collaboration or something in the future. And I'll for sure be diving more into TV High, man. Thanks again, Jeff. I really appreciate you rolling
I
through today, man.
appreciate it.
Absolutely, brother. So I'm just gonna stop it now and then. But yeah, man, how do you feel about that, brother?
I feel great.
Wonderful. Yeah, that was good, man. Yeah, I really enjoyed chatting with you, Jeff.